You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game, and we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening. Our guest, of course, is Alderman Bob Fioretti. And the main thing about the alderman is running for mayor of the city of Chicago. We're taping this on December 22nd, but the election is on February 24th.
Yes, it is.
The guy with the ability to sort of talk about the issues, that's Alderman Bob Fioretti. He's been an alderman for 7 years. He was in the Corporation Counsel's office previously for 7 or 8 years. He has been in private practice for more than 2 decades, and he's still in private practice, but his main focus is on the city council, and that's lucky because that means we can go right to the issues. And you know, Bob, if we can call you the Alderman Fioretti.
That's fine.
You know, we're taping this on the 22nd of December, and the last week, what did we have? Somebody who was a kid who was just short of his 16th birthday. He was murdered because somebody wanted his jacket. This is in the city of Chicago. A few months back, we had in a weekend, we might have had 80 shootings and 10 deaths. Another weekend, 40 or 50 shootings. So violence and murder and kids, young kids go off to a slumber party in Chicago, and they get caught in the crossfire between gangbangers, and they don't make it through the night. So we're asking you, Alderman Fioretti, can you do something about that if you become mayor of the city of Chicago?
Well, I think the most prevalent issue, and thanks for letting me be on the show here, and I hope to be back more often before the election.
We look forward to having you back.
Good, thank you.
And we look forward to having Chuy Garcia, who was going to be here but canceled. Chuy, we hope to see you. Rahm Emanuel, who was here twice on Public Affairs when he ran for Congress. Rahm, it's been like a dozen years. It's time. And maybe Willie Wilson, who's got a petition challenge, but if he survives that, or even if not, we'll have, and maybe others. So, but numero uno, Alderman Bob Fioretti. Thank you so much for coming.
Good to be here. Good to be here, and good to be before your viewers. You know, crime is probably the number one issue across the city. You talked about the young man who was not 16 yet and shot over a jacket. Just the last few weeks, what were the most prevalent ones that we saw in the newspapers? The young man, I think 21 years old, outside Truman College at his job, was shot by a gang member. He was not in a gang. He was not the intended target. We had up in Rogers Park, a young man from Loyola shot and killed. Recently, a 31-year-old father, Western and Ogden, boarding a bus or getting off of a bus and shot and killed. Crime is the number one issue. So how do we deal with it? What do we need to do in our neighborhoods? I've been a proponent for years that we need to hire more police. In 2010, I believe it was, I called for 1,000 new police officers. A year ago, I found a way with other members of the Progressive Caucus to hire 500 new members. I've called recently to hire 500 new members and then increase that in subsequent years. But we can't police ourselves out of the problem. It's just one portion, just a small piece of the puzzle. We need to reopen our mental health clinics. We closed those down. We've got a lot of problems in that area. Our county jail currently, according to the sheriff, is really the largest mental health center in the country. He believes it's well over 40% of the people have mental health problems. So we need to deal with it there. At the same time, we can find ways to solve crime by hiring people at good jobs, living wage jobs, so they can support their families. We can create the jobs if we want to. We can find the way to have the jobs if we want to. Now what we need is the political will.
Well, okay, 2 or 3 kids are on the block. I think they were all black, so this wasn't racial crime. I think it was probably black on black. And a kid sees another kid and he wants the jacket, and the kid resists. They're brothers. One is able to get away, the other is shot and killed. Are you telling me because one of those kids didn't have access to a mental health clinic, it wouldn't have happened?
No, I didn't say that.
I know, so just address that. What do we do? Can we give people any comfort, not in a day, not in a week, but over months? If you're there as mayor, you're within a year or two going to diminish the likelihood of that happening. You can't guarantee it won't. what would most diminish the likelihood of that happening? That specific kind of crime.
Well, first of all, well-lighted areas, viaducts, making sure kids have jobs. All of that plays into what we're doing. You know, you can always take the broad brush and say, oh, no, it's because of this reason. But those 4 instances that I talked about were different parts of the city of Chicago. It wasn't just black-on-black crime.
Well,
as
one
you
of
were
the recent
saying.
muggings was out in front, maybe at the doorsteps of the mayor's house. I mean, that's kind of frightening because most people know, and maybe the perps didn't know, that he's supposed to have a police officer out in front of the house all the time.
Well,
Nobody's
he's got
quite
more than a
said.
police officer.
So
He's
where
got
were these
several.
folks? What were they doing? Were they out getting a donut? I don't mean to knock the police, but how does the mayor's son at his doorstep virtually get mugged, and these kids get away who did the mugging?
Well, I still think that story's not closed yet, and we're going to hear more about it as the days go on.
Any idea what the story's going to be when we do hear more about it?
Not that I know, just secondhand, third-hand, a lot of hearsay. So I don't know why the young man, the son, left the house at 10 o'clock at night to make a phone call. It raises questions. The mayor's been very specific about certain things, and parental control is one of them, and I think we'll hear more from the mayor as
What
the
about
days go on.
apprehension? Do we have to have, you want to have more police? That might raise the apprehension rate. Do we have to, would these kids be frightened if they thought, if they're 17, maybe 16, they can be treated as an adult? Would any of those things concern these kids, or do we think these kids just don't care and they're going to kill somebody if they want a jacket?
No, I don't think, let's not, all of a sudden downgrade all the youth of America.
Not
And
all the youth, but there are
where
some
they're
youth
from,
who
where
need
they're
some
from.
specific attention.
Yeah, they do need specific attention. Absolutely. They need jobs, they need hope. Let's not forget what's happening in our communities. We need to restore hope. We need more police officers. We need jobs. We need economic opportunity throughout this city. And those are the ways that we're going to bring down the crime rate.
Well, okay. Well, let's go over to minimum wages because that's been a big issue. We're talking about jobs, and there's some people who say that when you raise the minimum wage, especially significantly, you're going to price a lot of these individuals who are low-skilled out of the market. You voted, you supported an increase in the minimum wage over 4 years from currently the Illinois state minimum wage is $8.25.
Right.
The federal is $7.25. Over 4 years, it would go to $13 an hour. Some said it should have gone higher, but Alderman Riley and 4 others said they all supported an increase in the minimum wage, but they said this is too high. They said this is the tipping point. They said a lot of people are just going to go outside the city, businesses to the suburbs. They won't have to in 4 years pay $13. They could pay, if Illinois keeps it the same, $8.25, or maybe if Illinois raises it, people think they will, to $11, they're still paying less. In Indiana, which is close in some situations, Indiana has even a lower minimum wage than Illinois. Mary O'Connor, one of your colleagues, said, some of these businesses are just going to go under. They can't afford it. What do you say to those issues? Now, I think all four of the major candidates, or at least 3, Chuy Garcia, Rahm Emanuel, because he sponsored this, and you support a significantly higher minimum wage. But what if there's some people who differ with all 3 of you, and they're voters, and they say what I said? That is, you're going to lose these jobs, you're going to price some of these folks out of the market. Address those people because you want those people to vote for you.
Same thing what I said. No, it's not an issue. It's about fairness and about making sure people can live in this city. I mean, you try living on $8.25 an hour. When I talk to a mother of 2 who has to work 2 jobs, she can't even raise her kids then because of a minimum wage of $8.25. Now, the question gets to be, and I said it on the floor, we have a very, I don't want to say a dysfunctional city council, okay? And I said as I finished my speech that the work begins now in this council. We need, because we had a very minimal type hearing on it. Yes, they had some other type hearings, but we need
You
to
did
now.
the day before, to set the stage for people, let me remind them, on December 1st, I was there, you were there, you had the workforce committee of the city council reporting to you and making recommendations that they do raise the minimum wage to $13 and laying that out. And I saw you there and others discuss it. And that went on for several hours.
Well,
You
it was
just-
it was very brief.
Okay.
If you call that a hearing that really gets to the point of listening to businesses in this city, then we're all fooling ourselves.
Oh, yeah, there wasn't a lot of that. There was some
not.
speeches. Okay.
That's all it was, and pontificating. So,
So how would you do it differently if you were
first
mayor?
of all,
What would you have done?
I said when I finished my speech and when we voted for the increase that this is just the start. Now the hard work begins. We need to roll up our sleeves before we start implementing this and listen to the businesses and try to help them find tax cuts, relief from some of the fees, items that we can do that will keep businesses and small businesses here. In fact, just today, I met with a large entity that has a lot of franchise owners, and talked to them about how to help their franchises. And I'm looking through the numbers, how many people each franchise employs, what was the average pay, what's their margins, what we can do there. Earlier, I just, on the way here, received a email from a business organization that many of their members want to work with me and try to find some kind of solution to help them out too. And it's the same thing that what we need to do. We've got to find ways to help our businesses, help their employees. And I've talked to a lot of small restaurant owners,
Right.
and they've talked to me. And believe it or not, even though they have a single-digit profit margin, they're willing to go up and make the push.
To $13?
To $13 and to $15.
They would go higher
Yes,
to 15?
they would.
Really?
Yes, they would. You know, there's such a
Any
resistance.
names you could give us?
No, not right now. I
Okay.
think they'll all come forward, though.
Okay.
And
Okay.
in fact, I was on one of the shows on WGN on Thanksgiving night with a couple of restaurant owners on the radio program, and the restaurants there said that they would be willing to go for
Okay,
it.
well, just one question, then we'll go on, because we've got a lot of topics we have to cover, but it is an important topic. Some would say, if you want to help these low-income people, and they are not adverse to doing that, let them work for a lower wage, maybe $9, $10 an hour, raise it, but not as much as you say, but then supplement that. Have the city or the state or the county give low-income people additional income, similar to the earned income tax credit. That at least keeps people working. The person doesn't become unemployed, because if that person becomes unemployed, then somebody has to pay the whole thing. Do you see the point?
It's not a bad idea, but that's
Would
why
you
I said-
support that as mayor? Would you
well,
try
no,
to accomplish
before
that
I
as
get
mayor?
into that, what I said at the start of this discussion, I am willing to work with small businesses to help them find ways to make sure that their employees have a good living wage here. And we will work with them. I'm willing to work with them. And I think it's crucial because we need to keep small businesses, and small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and so we need them to survive, period.
Well, let's go over to education. We've covered public safety or violence. We've covered jobs and the economy. We may come back to that. That's a much broader topic. But one of the other major issues that I understand to be is education. Rahm, when he ran, Mayor Rahm Emanuel said there were three major issues 4 years ago. He said public safety, violence, and people can ask this, is the city safer than it was 4 years ago? He said city finances, are the finances better? He also said education. Are we doing a better job across the board in education in the Chicago public schools than we were 3 years ago? And if not, what would you do differently, Alderman Fioretti?
Well, first of all, I think there's our educational system is somewhat in disarray. It is in disarray. We need to make changes for sure. And we need to find the right kind of resources to help our neighborhood schools.
Some people say, well, Reverend Meeks, I heard him say, you know Reverend Meeks, right?
Right?
Former state senator. He upset some people in his party, although he's an independent, because he supported Bruce Rauner for governor. I was out at his church, I guess at the House of Hope. and he was talking about education, and he essentially said 25% of the black kids maybe a little higher, but about the same for the Hispanic kids, the minority kids in CPS in fourth grade read at grade level. 75% don't. That's a pretty terrible statistic. He says, Reverend Meek says, he thinks we ought to give people some choice. They ought to be able to go to a charter school. They ought to be able to take their money and go to a private school because they're not learning how to read now. That's most important. We should give them some choices. Wealthier people can move to the suburbs where we're taping here. They can move to the North Shore. They can move to, they can move to other parts of the city where the schools might be better. They can go to private schools. They have choice. Would you, and I know you're tied closely to the teachers union. I know you've spoken on this issue.
I'm not closely tied to the teachers union, but I do support.
Do you think? Well, let me say.
I do support.
Let me get the question out. Do you think low-income people, especially those in non-performing schools, should have a way out, a choice, whether it's a charter school, whether it's a voucher school, whether it's home learning, some alternative to their school which isn't getting the job done now?
Well, I've yet to see whether charter schools perform better. If they did, I'd be embracing them. But
you would.
Really
if you became convinced they did better, you would give those people that choice.
If they would perform better. But the evidence and the years that we've had charter schools show that they don't. And in fact, they take away more revenue away from the neighborhood schools. It's almost as if they hit the foundation of a neighborhood school. Neighborhood schools have a purpose here, and neighborhood schools need the resources to survive in this economy. And when we talk about phony issues, such as what some people like to say, that we have the options, well, the options are there. I make sure that children who want to have a better education in my ward, and I have 40 schools, we look at the options for the child. We talk to the parents of the child, and we try to find the best school to fit the needs of that student, no matter who.
Are some of those options in your ward? What ward do you have?
The second ward.
The second ward. So are some of those parents in the second ward have an option, a choice of going to a charter school if they disagree with you? If they think the charter school is more likely to perform?
We have charter schools in the ward.
And that's an option.
I've created neighborhood boundaries around charter schools.
But you agree they should have that option, even though you might disagree with them that it doesn't perform better.
What I disagree,
they think it does.
I disagree the use of charter schools and how they.
So you don't think they should have that option?
I don't think so. It's at all.
And Rahm, well, is that a difference? So Rahm Emanuel says, does he say they should have an option of going to a charter school?
And
although there hasn't been.
I think the neighborhood schools, until we get our neighborhood schools in order, which can be done quickly under my administration, then we can explore. I think people will gravitate towards the neighborhood school. They will want a neighborhood school as long as we have the right kind of involvement in our neighborhood schools. Charter schools, don't forget, have a lot of other rules that are all under the table, and including, maybe I don't like your tie. Maybe I don't like the way you picked your nose today.
I don't think they're not. You don't think most charter schools are that arbitrary, do you?
I sure do.
Really?
Yes.
Any that you would point to?
No, I don't want to right now, but it's been proven over and over.
Okay. Well, there are some. Well, number one, you said neighborhood schools. A charter school could be a neighborhood school. A charter school can be located it could be located as a competitive school to the traditional neighborhood school. There's no reason it could draw the kids from that school. Because they're not allowed to go for just kids who do well on tests. Charter schools, like traditional neighborhood schools, have to take everybody who wants to come. And if there are more people who want to be there than there are there, they do a lottery.
Well, this is an argument that until we realize what we've done to our neighborhood schools by the flourishing and creation of charter schools and fiscally irresponsible ones, then I am not ready to go down a path to say that we should allow charter schools.
We've got still 7 or 8 minutes left here. Let me turn to you, and I'll wait till the last minute or two.
Uh-oh.
Here's your choice. We've covered public safety. We've covered now education. We've covered violence. We haven't touched too much on city finances. We might come to that. But what do you think? What have we not covered that's most important to you as you run for mayor of the city of Chicago?
Well, you know, I think...
Which topics? It's your 6 or 7 minutes. It's your show.
Okay, oh, well. You know, Chicago's it's not a melting pot, but it's more of a mosaic about who we are and how we came here. You know, when my dad came to this country from Italy, he was 7 years old, and he started in the public schools. He and his family came here just with the clothes on their backs.
He was an immigrant. He immigrated here from
yes.
Italy.
And
your mother was Polish American?
yes, exactly.
So you've got the Polish vote, you got the Italian vote.
Right.
It should be a net plus to come on this show.
And
Chewy, see, you could have done this.
Right, exactly. And you know, and I was born in Roseland, grew up in the neighborhood.
And where is that for people who don't know?
Far south side.
Okay.
I grew up at 119th and Lafayette.
Is that outside the city, or is it part of
No,
the city? It's in the city?
The city goes to about 138th
Right,
in parts.
okay,
So, but it was a great area.
And
There
where'd
was
you
a
go to
lot of
school?
opportunity. I went to St. Anthony Grade School. I went to
Parochial school?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and in Mendel High School?
And Mendel High School.
And Mendel's public school?
I was Catholic.
Catholic. So you've gone to Catholic schools?
Yes.
Should they have that option if they can to go to a parochial school?
If people so desire, yes.
If they can afford it, and if the
Right.
church wants to, in many cases, they provide scholarships.
And they do. A lot of churches do. I've been surprised at the ability of a lot of the churches, especially on the north side, of what they do to assist families who want to go, who want a religious
So you believe in those
education.
options?
Well, yes.
Okay. And you
I-
yourself had it. Your parents
I had
exercised
it.
that option.
Exactly.
Okay. Then you went to the University of Illinois.
Yes.
You majored in political science.
Yes.
Right? Then you went to law school.
Yes.
Northern Illinois?
Are we reading it off my? Yes, exactly.
No, I just know it.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Good.
Northern Illinois, and as we told people earlier in the show, you practiced law now for over 3 decades. Portions of it, large portions in private practice, large portions in the Corporation Counsel's office. You've been now an alderman for 7 years. Okay. Is that who you are? Have I told people who you are? Or is there something else about the core of the Alderman Bob Fioretti, that people should know as you run for mayor?
Well, again, I think growing up in this city gave me my values. You know, when I grew up in Roseland, I had my first job there, bussing tables at a restaurant, washing trucks, working in the parks. You know, I'm a product of the schools, the streets of this city. And I've learned to understand what people here want. We're a great city, but even then, we still need people united to be one city. And I think we can all work together to resolve problems that we have. I mean, we all know that when we hear about that, we all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But our Creator gave us an additional gift, a gift of human intelligence and reason, and the ability to approach and sit down at a table with that.
What does that mean
ability.
operationally? So that's an interesting philosophy. It's a nice philosophy.
But
Assume you're now mayor. Assume you win 51%, so there's no runoff. You would like that, right? So
Right.
on February 25th, it is Bob Fioretti will be the mayor of the city of Chicago. What does all of that mean for how you operate? Because you and others have referred to Mayor Rahm Emanuel as what, Mayor 1%.
I don't
What is-
know
do
if
you
I've
ever-
ever referred to
We've
him
heard
as
others
one,
refer to
and
him as
I
mayor.
have.
What do those people mean when they say Mayor 1%?
Because I think he listens. You'd have to ask them.
But you must
But,
have some idea you're running against him.
You know, I think he's somebody who doesn't want to listen to the people of this city. That was quite clear with the school closings. He doesn't want to listen to the communities.
But they had hearings. His superintendent went to a number of those
They
hearings.
did? I don't
she?
believe so. I
You
don't
didn't?
believe the superintendent went to any of them.
You don't think so? Okay.
No,
So
I
you would
don't
make sure
recall.
your superintendent at the CPS, if you could make it your superintendent, you would make sure there were hearings, you would make sure she met with the parents of those schools that were being closed, listened to them, and then reported back to you. That would be different? Is that what you're saying?
Well, maybe as mayor, well, first of all, I wouldn't have undertaken that. But the mayor should have been at some of the hearings.
You wouldn't have closed the 50 schools?
That's right.
Would you have closed any of them?
Well, I'd have to take a look at it because we did have population shifts, and we would have
Right.
done things differently.
So he said low utilization.
He
said they closed for low utilization.
One time it was
Really?
low utilization, then it was underperformance, then it was this, that.
Well,
It
what do you
depended
think-
on what
well,
day
what do you
it
think
was.
it was?
It was turning their backs on our communities and not listening to the people
But why
in
would
our
he do it? He
community.
doesn't want to upset people.
You know what?
Why
He
do you
sure
think he
did.
did it? But why do you think he did
I don't
it?
know. You're going to have to ask him.
Okay, Ron,
because
come
it
on
was-
and explain why you
Yeah,
did it.
and the sooner we get him here, the better
Well,
it'll
that
be.
raises a
We could have a
topic.
nice
So there should be
debate
some
then.
debates. Would you, if I could just get the two of you, Rahm Emanuel and Alderman Fioretti, you game for that debate?
I'm up for it.
Okay. And you think they should?
I actually have called for 5 debates.
5 debates. Among how many? How are you going to decide? Because I think there are 8 people who filed. There's some petition challenges.
there
Would you
are.
let all 8 participate? Or would
Well,
you try
no,
to
we
make it the
actually
top
asked
2 or 3?
above 5%. You'd have to
In
have
the
5%
polls.
in the poll.
You got 5%?
Yes.
What do you got?
Well above that.
Okay, so it'd be you. It would be the mayor, Rahm Emanuel. Would it be Alderman? Would it be
You know what?
Commissioner Chuy Garcia?
It's still early to say who would
Okay.
have 5%.
But pretty soon we'd know. And you're saying anybody who's got more than 5% in the polling should participate?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
How we make this into a global, livable city that still respects our communities. And that's the issue.
Well, that's an issue. Somebody may say, Jeff, you've been sort of soft, so let me give you a hard one, and we're going to be almost done. But some say to you, you talk about the neighborhoods, and, the neighborhoods they're being ignored, they have to be helped. And you say, you've got a nice, shiny city, Rom, but the neighbors are hurting. And some would say, but the jobs come out of the city. The jobs come out of the big companies that are there. The people in the neighborhoods go downtown and they work there. If you don't support making that city a shiny city, if you don't support I've heard Democrats, Pete Giangreco, you may know him, he's a good Democratic strategist. He says, without employers, you don't have employees. So you got to focus on that.
Well, I've never said not to.
Okay. So are you a neighborhood guy as well as a city guy?
You have to be. You
Both,
have to bring
neighborhood and
jobs,
city.
But you have to bring at the same time jobs. Look, I've done more to bring jobs here into the city, from United to a Costco to a Trader Joe's to a Target to
You want those
Pete's.
businesses here because they've got jobs.
Well, they provide jobs, yes. And at the same time, we need to encourage jobs to come in here.
Some say
But-
you want a commuter tax, that is, you want to tax suburbanites who come into the city.
No, some don't say that. I do say that.
They do say that. You're telling people
Yes.
right now, you want
Yes.
that. A 1%
Absolutely.
tax on their income, only for people who live outside the city, not for people who live in the city.
Right.
And that's going to raise how much about?
350 plus million.
Okay. And you don't think businesses are going to think, do they want to, when you're going to tax their employees, they may figure they have to offset that and pay higher wages.
And
you think they might
you can
locate
write that
somewhere
off of
else?
your tax returns.
So you
And
don't
no,
think
they won't.
you don't drive
No, they
businesses
won't.
out
I don't know
doing that?
why anybody even thinks that. Because the more suburbanites I talk to, the more of them that are in favor of it. They understand that they are part of a system that needs help. The 1%, wherever they live, whether it's in Milwaukee, Gary, the few that drive in from Iowa, all want to help contribute under fundamental fairness. They take their money, their $30 billion, that's with a B, $30 billion, and they spend it in their communities. When they come here, what do they want? They want clean streets. They want safe streets. If they have a medical emergency, they want somebody there immediately.
Your point is that takes money to provide those services. You've got to collect the revenue. You may need a tax.
That's right.
You also want a financial transactions tax on
That's
the
true.
financial center here in Chicago?
Well, that's true.
Do you want that?
Whether it's a fraction of a penny, it depends, yes.
You want something?
Yes.
And you don't think that would drive the Merc out of town? You would
No, I don't
drive
think
the
the
other
Merc is going to leave,
exchanges out?
but first of all, a lot of these ideas I want on the table, and I want them
You want to
vetted.
discuss them?
I want a full discussion, because we need new sources of revenue.
But we very much want to thank Alderman Bob Fioretti. We told you something about him. We should have also told you that he's currently engaged about 2 months ago.
Yes.
Going to be married man sometime soon in the future.
Very soon.
And who's the lucky bride?
Nikki Pecori. No, she's I don't know. I'm the lucky guy.
You're the
Yes.
lucky guy, because
Yes.
I know Nikki. You are a lucky guy.
Yeah, thanks.
She's a great woman.
Yes.
My thanks so much to Alderman Bob Fioretti, who's running for mayor. The election is February 24th.